Well, good morning again. Welcome to the second of my Bible reflections, where I've had the pleasure and the privilege of choosing a Bible passage of my own choice. Well, today I've chosen one of my favourites again. It comes from the book of Joshua. I wonder if you've ever travelled along a motorway, perhaps looking forward to arriving at your holiday destination. The journey's been long, it's been hot, it's been tiring, and you're just looking forward to arrival. And then suddenly you see it. Just above your carriageway on the motorway, there are signs saying, expect delays, lanes ahead closed, congestion, be what it may. How infuriating can that be? And yet, when you think about it, there are obstacles and barriers confronting us and frustrating us in life wherever we are, every time. And even when we think things are going well, or when we think we are in the place where God wants us to be, there can still be formidable barriers and formidable obstacles. And I just want to read you some verses this morning about that very thing, something which you'll relate to as soon as I begin to read. It comes from Joshua chapter 3. Early in the morning, Joshua and all the Israelites set out and went to the Jordan, where they camped before crossing over. After 3 days, the officers went throughout the camp, giving orders to the people. When you see the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God, and the priests who are Levites carrying it, you are to move out from your positions and follow it. Then you will know which way to go, since you have never been this way before. But keep a distance of about 1,000 yards between you and the ark. Do not go near it. Joshua told the people, consecrate yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do amazing things among you. Joshua said to the priests, take up the ark of the covenant and pass on ahead of the people. So they took it up and went ahead of them. And the Lord said to Joshua, today I will begin to exalt you in the eyes of all Israel, so that they may know that I am with you as I was with Moses. Tell the priests who carry the ark of the covenant, when you reach the edge of the Jordan's waters, go and stand in the river. So when the people broke camp to cross the Jordan, the priests carrying the ark of the covenant went ahead of them. Now the Jordan is in flood all during harvest. Yet as soon as the priests who carried the ark reached the Jordan and their feet touched the water's edge, the water from upstream stopped flowing. It piled up in a heap a great distance away, at a town called Adam in the vicinity of Zarethan, while the waters flowing down to the sea of the Arab, the salt sea, was completely cut off. So the people crossed over opposite Jericho. The priests who carried the ark of the covenant of the Lord stood firm on dry ground in the middle of the Jordan, while all Israel passed by until the whole nation had completed the crossing on dry ground. What a wonderful reading that is. It was the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Well, Joshua was leading the Israelites, God's people, and he was leading them towards the promised land. And early one morning they left camp and moved towards the river Jordan, en route to Canaan on the other side. And when they got to the banks of the Jordan, they camped again for 3 days and prepared themselves to cross the river. But they faced major obstacles. It was the rainy season, and the Jordan was in flood. There was only way into Canaan, and that was to pass through that raging river. There was no getting around it. In those days they didn't have a sat-nav saying recalculating. They had to cross that river. And you know, the flooded River Jordan was not the only problem that Joshua faced. He was taking the people into the unknown. They had never been that way before, and they didn't know what to expect. For Joshua himself, as a leader, he was taking the people into a new situation, to a place where they'd never been, to do something they'd never done before. This was going to be a huge test of his leadership. So what did they do? Well, Joshua listened to God's instructions. He asked the people to purify themselves, to consecrate themselves, and to wait on God to do amazing things among them. They allowed the Ark of the Covenant to be carried on ahead. The Ark, which kind of symbolized the presence and the power of God, went ahead of them, and it led them into that river, through those uncharted waters, and safely to the other side. You see, where there was no way, God made a way through for Joshua and the people that he was leading. Well, why do I love this passage so much? Well, quite simply because it's a very powerful reminder to us all of the key ingredients that we need in order to strengthen our Christian discipleship. Faith, trust in God, personal courage, obedience, a willingness to speak and to listen to God all the time, and the humility to accept that, well, without his guidance, we ain't going nowhere. And like all good Bible stories, I think it gives us a lot to think about and to perhaps apply to our own lives. I wonder if we can spare some time just thinking about those obstacles in our lives that keep us separated from where God wants us to be and where he might be leading us. What's the Jordan River in our lives? And who put that Jordan River in our path? Was it ourselves? Can we get around it? I sometimes wonder whether the things that hold us back are our own lack of self-confidence, perhaps our lack of trust in God. Maybe our personal barrier is our pride, the pride that doesn't allow us to admit to our mistakes, or to admit that we really need help from anybody. Let's spend some time this week thinking about our Jordans, our barriers, our obstacles. And can we see that also from this story that God really does want us to move forward? He wants us to cross over those boundaries, those barriers. He wants us to enjoy the abundant life that's waiting for us, that's promised to us on the other side of that barrier. He wants us at his side. He's going to lead us and he's going to do amazing things to make it possible for us to move ahead. He loves us too much to leave us standing on the wrong side of that flooded river. But, you know, the choice is ours to make. We can settle on the wrong side. We can settle ourselves short of where God wants us to be, if that's really what we want to do. And it makes us think, this story also makes us think about whether we are paralyzed by our own fear. You see, Joshua and the Israelites rightfully feared. They were terrified of that flooded river, but they placed their reliance and their trust in God. And I wonder how much we continue today to be paralyzed by our own fear of moving on. Fearful of moving on as individuals, or perhaps too scared of stepping out, too scared of speaking out, too scared of taking risks. I wonder if that's us as individuals or even as a church. And I like to reflect on what the passage also tells me about the character of God. Yes, he wants us to move forward, but you know, he's not a forceful God. He is a loving God. He is a compassionate God. He is a caring God. God has endless patience with us. He held up Joshua and the Israelites on the banks of that river for 3 whole days. He wanted them to reflect on that formidable river, that formidable flood, and to develop that trust in him. God will wait for us too. He'll be there for us when we want to face our personal crises and when we want to move on and over that barrier. Well, that's my second story shared with you. I thank you for your time this morning. Hope that it's made some sense to you. Next week, Ben will be back bright and early on Monday morning to continue our journey through Mark's Gospel. So that's something to look forward to. Until we meet again, please take care and have a good day, and God bless you all. Bye-bye.